I absolutely love to read. I try to read every night, and there's a variety of reasons that I really like it. I read a lot for enjoyment, but lately I've been reading a lot just to get advice on my business and how to better run Forecaster. The cool thing about books is that you can really kind of tap into the minds of some of these super entrepreneurs that are out there. A lot of people that are incredibly successful decide to jot down some of their secrets, some of the things that they use to run their businesses. And it's really cool to be able to peek behind the curtain of their minds, get some of their tips, some of their strategies towards success. And a lot of these books that we've read have really even helped us run our business better at Forecaster, giving us a lot of like really actionable tips, a lot of really interesting strategies and different ways of thinking about things for our business. So I wanted to call out a few books here that have really resonated with me, especially in the past year. I'll talk a little bit about what the book entails, how it was useful for us at Forecaster, some of the key strategies that we pulled out of them, and all around why you should read some of these. A lot of these authors came recommended to us from mentors, founders, other people that have read these books. And I've read a ton of business books that never really resonated with me. I didn't really take a lot from them, but these books in particular are ones that I actually drew what I thought were really good insights from. They were books that I would recommend to others, that I actively recommend to others, and have really helped me either personally as an entrepreneur or helped our business in some way, shape, or form. So I'm gonna jump in and start talking about some of these. Please don't forget to subscribe to the video. Once you've subscribed, comment down below. Let us know that you subscribed. We're gonna try to respond to all of the comments down below, and let's get into it. All right, so the first book that I want to talk about is the one that I think resonated the most with me personally over this past year. It's called How to Be a Capitalist Without Any Capital, and it's by a guy named Nathan Latka. So what I really like about this book is there's a lot of books out there that talk about general strategy. They give you a lot of advice without actually giving you actionable advice. It can almost be more motivational, more aspirational, and that stuff's really interesting, but it doesn't give you like an actual playbook, you know, do this, then that. These are specific things that you can and should do both personally and professionally. Although his book has individual strategies for starting major venture-backed companies, this book focuses more on the entrepreneur, really more what he defines as the new rich, which are people that aren't comfortable with a 9-to-5 work life. They want to go and start their own company, they want to start their own side hustle, and they want to be in control of their own destiny. One of the pieces of actionable information that I took out of this book was the ability to acquire really small businesses for super cheap, and then continue to build out those businesses, grow user bases, and make some actual side money with these endeavors. After reading the book, I actually went and acquired a Chrome extension. It's called Flow Time, which had 30,000 users whenever I acquired it, and I was able to throw up a paywall and get some side money from that. He's also got other really interesting strategies like using Turo to rent out your car, interesting ways to get money back, especially while traveling, and just generally life hack type things as ways to generate more cash for you as a person, or just different ways to think about things from a business perspective. Another just tidbit of information that I took from that book was just the entire mentality of acquisitions and acquiring companies. So before I had read this book, whenever I thought of an acquisition, I thought about multi-million-dollar offers, just huge rooms full of lawyers and all of this like big legal headache and paperwork and cash. What I hadn't really thought of was just these little micro acquisitions that anybody can make personally or professionally. So for Forecaster, one of the things that we thought about after I read this book was looking at some of our competitors that had died. Maybe they were really small companies, tiny companies that were probably solo founders that would likely be acquired for just a couple $1,000s. Then we could go buy those companies, buy up their content, maybe some of their users, things like that. But a lot of these have assets that can be leveraged by us, and they're super cheap just because they were tiny companies that you could buy for next to nothing. That alone was a huge takeaway that I had from the book, but then I had several other takeaways that affected me both as a founder of Forecaster and just as a person that has an entrepreneurial mindset that wants to have other side businesses or other streams of income personally. Highly recommend it. Nathan's a really cool guy as well. He's really active on social media, and he's got his own company that he's working on called Founder Path that helps companies get funded through debt instead of equity, especially SaaS companies. The second book that really resonated with me was The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. So a lot of you guys probably recognize his name from Andreessen Horowitz, the giant VC firm, but Ben really tells an interesting story in this book, and it's really just the story of his life as a founder and some of his past ventures. What I really like about this book is that it's basically just a successful founder, telling the story of his life, telling the story of what worked for him in past companies, what didn't work, and really just shedding the light on the life of a founder and what can be expected as a founder. He shares some of the good, some of the bad. He talks about what it's like to actually go on a roadshow for institutional rounds of funding as a startup, how stressful it can be, the emotional impact of letting go huge numbers of employees and growing teams super rapidly. He talks a lot about company culture in the book, talking about when to hire people, when to fire people, how to build teams, and how to successfully scale and grow a company. There's a lot of really good information that you can get from just listening to his thought process and how he thinks about building companies. This one's less of a play-by-play book, like do this, then that in order to achieve success. So in contrast to Nathan Latka's book, where he gives you individual things to do and kind of like a roadmap type thing, Ben just kind of talks about what it's like to be a founder. Both are incredibly valuable, and I highly recommend both books. The third book is less of a fun read, but it's more of a necessary read, I think. It's called Venture Deals, and it's by Brad Feld. I came into contact with this book whenever I went through Techstars. The first thing that they did is they gave us a copy of the book and told us to read it, and their tagline for it was, "Be smarter than your lawyers." The material in the book can be a little dense, but Brad does a really good job of making it as fun to read as humanly possible for the type of content that it is. Regardless, I think that it is super necessary to read this book, especially if you're a founder that's going to be going after venture capital or anything like that. There are going to be a lot of things within that universe that you may not understand, or there'll be new terms to you or things that are completely unfamiliar with you that Brad does a really good job in this book of just laying the landscape out, talking about all of the different terms, giving thoughts, feedback, advice, strategies, all of that, and executing a really successful fundraising round from VCs. Where Nathan's book was individual strategies and Ben's book was more of just lifestyle of a founder, talking about his life as a founder, Brad's is more, I don't want to say textbooky, but kind of textbooky. But I think of it as the Bible of fundraising. Before you go on a fundraise, before you start talking to VCs, read that book and just make sure that you're aware of the terms so that you're not completely unfamiliar with the process. The third book is called The Lean Startup, and this is by Ries. I think that this is a critical book for anybody to read that's thinking about starting a company or early on in starting a company. The message of the entire book is essentially around the idea of iteration cycles when building a company, talking a lot to customers and iterating super quickly as a way to quickly find product market fit. This was super critical to me personally because I'm not a product person, I'm a finance nerd. So whenever I was building a software company that required a lot of user input, it was really critical for me to understand how valuable it was to talk to customers and then take their advice and quickly build their feedback into the product. It's all about continuous process improvement. It's all about communicating as actively as you can with your customers, and it's about being lean and trying to stay lean while building out an MVP. This is a super customer facing process. It's about the customer driving the bus and you essentially just listening to the customer, trying to keep costs low, trying to stay as nimble as possible and move very quickly in accordance to what the customers want. In this way, you're always building towards the ultimate goal of pleasing the customer, and they are essentially driving the bus on the entire thing. So there you have it. These are the 4 books that we think that every startup founder must read. If you enjoyed the content, please hit the thumbs up button. We also really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. Again, comment down below, let us know that you subscribe, and thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next week with a new video.